This is a bit of an advanced tutorial for the complete understanding of eBay listing rules templates. So this doesn't really apply to everyone, but if you want to get a better understanding, I guess, of your listing rules templates, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you every single section of how you can really manipulate eBay from Neato. So to start with, we're going to go to eBay and click on listing rules templates, and we're going to get to this page here. So what we want to do is we want to go into the one of the listing rules templates. And what we're going to do is we're going to pretend we're going to do it from scratch, so a brand new listing rules template. So obviously we want to set it as active for the status. What you want to do is define the name here. So something easily to remember why you're building this listing rules template. Just makes it easier for everyone who's working on your store. Obviously the eBay store and the site, so obviously it's most of the time it's going to be eBay Australia that you're working on. Under the second tab, you've got the categorization and listing rules. Now, what this does here is when this is ticked, it uses the category mapping defined under this section here, which we spoke about in an earlier video. Now, you'll see this section here, and this is pretty important. It's called the fallback primary category. So in our category mapping, if we have not defined which category to pop onto eBay, say for example here, how it's listed under this category. If we don't define a category under the category mapping, the listing rules template will say, okay, we don't know where to list to on eBay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put it into this fallback category. So that's what that means there. And usually this is defined by, usually in an other sort of category. That's what we usually put them under. And same with primary store category. So most of the time it'll be in the other section. Okay, so specifics. So to understand specifics, so those specifics are based on a certain area in Neato. So if we go into one of our listings, and you'll see these specifics filters here. So if you have any specifics listed in here, what they'll do is they'll be listed in this section here. Okay, so by default, brand, NPN, UPC, EAN fields will automatically be there. But if you wish to add more, and it's good for SEO purposes to actually do that, what you can actually do is you can add new primary category specific. Okay, so say for example you want to say like what color an item is. What you can do is you can put color, and in your actual listing, if you have a specific type called color in here, okay, and so we have red. So what that'll do is it will pick that up, that specific, onto Neato onto here. So another one will appear like color, and it will appear as red. Okay, you do not need to define a value here. That's a static value. So if you have that defined on the product level, it will pick up that specific value. Okay. So again, it's very important. If you do not have a color defined, say it's a completely different product, that will just not appear on eBay at all. So you won't have a whole bunch of specifics with no values in it. Okay. So item condition here, we want, usually it's going to be brand new, but if you're selling manufacturer parts or used parts, this is where you can define the definition here. Leave these brand and NPN sections. Those can be defined elsewhere. Okay. Leave the rest of this data. This is not that important. Now, what is important though is this variation section here. So in one of our first videos that we did, we talked about you needing two different listing rules templates when listing. If you sell a product, a standard product, which is like this one with no options, then you do not you do not need this ticked, okay? But if you do, you may want to copy this template and tick this option here, okay? If you are planning to sell using this template, sell products that do have variations. So again, like a t-shirt with different sizes, different colors and things like that. That's what's defined as like a variation, okay? Now, further on, we've got listing rules. So if you do auctions on eBay, this is where you can actually set it as an auction and set the time limit. But for most people these days on eBay, they're usually just doing fixed price items. GTC is what you want 99% of the time, because it means good till cancelled. So what that means is that eBay will not cancel the listing at all. It will stay up permanently. I am aware that if you don't have any any stock available on eBay, then after 3 months, eBay will cancel that listing. But it's important that you usually have it as GTC, because the more people buy from you, the sales history, the better rankings you'll get on eBay. So that's very important here. Listing schedule, we don't recommend changing this at all, because everything will be listed manually. And generally, if you have GTC, you only need to list it once, and it will stay up until you're ready to shut down that eBay listing. Okay, stock control. Now, this is pretty important. Obviously, if you're selling lots or anything like that, but generally it should just be individual items that you're selling. Maximum quantity to list, please keep this at 10, because on eBay you may see, as the seller, you'll see how many products you're actually buying. So sorry, how much you've actually got in stock. But to the customer, they will only ever see more than 10 available. So if you've got 50 in stock, it will just say this. Okay, so there's no point having more than 10. Okay, so automatically maintain stock levels. So what this actually means is, say you've got 7 in stock, okay, but you've got the maximum list here to be 10. Neato will recognize that you only have 7 and will only put up 7, okay, and it will automatically reduce stock when it gets sold on, say, your web store and on eBay, okay. And what that'll do is automatically top that up, which is obviously defined here. So automatically top it up. So once it gets down to a low amount, Neato will pop that back up to the maximum amount that you have, okay. So stock control, this is important. We always recommend keeping this on. So yes, only list an item if it's in stock, okay. So if you're not very good at maintaining your stock levels, and so you are prone to overselling stock items, we recommend using this stock buffer offset, okay. So say you've only got 10 in stock. If you set this to 1, okay, it will keep 1 in reserve just in case, so you don't oversell. So Neato will only list up to 9, okay, if you have that set as 1. And stock control source as well, so using all warehouses. So if you have a particular warehouse or a particular stockpile that you use just for eBay items, this is where you can get that defined, okay. But generally, most of the time, people are going to select all warehouses. Moving on to listing design and images. So in here, this is where you can do mapping of your products, of your product section. So what gets manipulated, this is how it's manipulated into eBay. So you've got a design template. So by default, we set one up for you, and this is found under eBay theme editor. So if you want to have a look at what different themes are available, there's a few standard ones in Neato, and you can also get a custom one done as well. And if you want to have a look at that, you can just press this edit design template, okay, and that will automatically show you how it's going to look on eBay, okay. So down here, you got your image mapping section. So sorry, I'm skipping on a few little points here because they're just not relevant anymore. So there's a few settings here which you don't need to change. So if you see me skipping over something, I recommend just doing the same thing. So in the image mapping section, so this is where you can control which images go into eBay. So for example, if you've got some watermark items that you're using for your eBay and say you don't want to use them for your web store, then you can select that. You can maintain those from here. Okay, so yeah, obviously main image. So I'll just sort of show you um, on the product page here. So this is main image 1, alt 2, etc, etc. So that's where that information has been pulled from. Okay. Now these listing enhancements, so bold title, border, feature plus, highlight, things like that. Now, as part of eBay's update, this no longer applies, so there's no reason to tick these boxes here. I'm not sure about overseas. I believe overseas may still have some of these features. We recommend just not touching them because they did attract additional fees for every single listing. On the next tab, we've got field mapping. Okay, so these are the eBay fields, okay, which are defined. So what you can do is you can actually manipulate what information is sent to eBay. So in here, you'll see column name. So these are the columns which are available from Neato. So by default, for the product title on eBay, it's going to, so this one here, so this is the product title. It's going to use in the Neato's Neato product page, it's going to use the name field, okay? So that's how that's defined in this section here, okay? We always recommend that you leave subtitle blank, and we do this by default. Now, the reason why we do that is there's an additional fee for using subtitles on eBay. So if you've got 1,000 items and you'd all of a sudden change the subtitle field here and list that to eBay with all your products, you're gonna get charged for every single listing. So it's a very important thing to remember here. Now, the next thing is your start price. So start price, that's more really to do with auctions, but this is actually to do with your pricing that's set. So by default, we use price A. So say you want to have a different price to say eBay, you can use a different price group here to define those pricings. Otherwise, you can set a value. So say you want to use price A, which is your web store price, and you can actually set here, and we'll say static value 1 times 1. Okay, so what it's going to do is your price on eBay is now going to be your web store price times 1.1, so 10%. So to cover your fees for eBay. So that's what some people like to do, and that sort of covers your costs. Brand field, NPN field. So you can define all this extra data. We always recommend UPC, EAN. So these two fields are generally the same. Okay, so if you've got an EAN barcode, it will pick that up, and vice versa with UPC. Shipping section, we've talked about that in an earlier video. So basically this section here is how you define your shipping options. You've got your domestic shipping here, and you've got your international shipping down here, okay? So don't worry too much about shipping insurance and related Neato shipping methods, okay? Just leave that as is. And finally, we got your payments and returns. So you can obviously define which payment methods you accept. Visa or MasterCard, we don't recommend keeping that on. That was to do with some integrated card merchant facilities that was offered, but it really doesn't apply to us. So we just generally say PayPal only, and we'll always tick the required immediate payment. So that way you don't have people with buyer's remorse buy something from you and then not pay you. And lastly, we've got your returns policy here. So That's how you sort of define uh, you you define how, like, what actually gets displayed to the customers, whether you offer 60-day money back, etc., and additional details here, so you can give further advice to people when they are returning items. They have to be careful that, say, for example, has to be in original packaging and so forth. Leave all this information off. This no longer applies to eBay. And that pretty much covers us for advanced listing rules templates.